Welcome back to another video, and I wanted to talk you through the 5 minutes before heading up to tech, before you go out into your heat. And this would be more directed towards maybe a national meeting than a club meeting. Obviously the agenda is to make sure that your car, each time it goes down onto the track, it's going to perform in the same way. So hopefully you've gone through a few of the other videos to get the car into a state where it's nicely balanced and set. But even though I've reset the car, I would always, just before I go out, I'd always just go around the car and make sure that all bolts are tightened. You'll know where your weak points are on the car, if there are any. And this is more for a peace of mind, more than anything else. The last thing you want is putting your car out on the track and it feeling a little bit on the weird side, and the car comes back only to find that you've seen a bolt come loose and you've just spent 8 minutes trawling around the track with a car that could have been fixed if you'd have just tightened a bolt up. Again, I'm not doing these very tight. People out there that have seen me tighten up those pod screws, I'm not doing them with any force. I'm just making sure that they're haven't got any slack in them, I suppose is probably the best way of putting it. And that would be the case. Always check the wheel nuts, both sides. I'd always go around the rear wheels as well, just to make sure that the 6 bolts that are holding the rear wheels on haven't come loose. They're silly things. You could have been changing your wheels, someone's come over to your pit table, they've asked you a question, you're midway through doing up the last bolt or the last 3 bolts, and you've forgotten to put them in. So these things happen, and I think anyone that's taking it to a level that they want to be as good as they can be would do those simple checks there. I'm taking into account that you've spent, as per one of my other videos, the 8 minutes drying off of your tyres, so that it gives another full 8 minutes or more of the tyres drying off before you put the car down on the track. Then I'll just take my ride height gauge and I'll just go around and just double check the ride height on both sides, making sure it's the same around the front. So that's all the same. Then I just make sure that the car is balanced. You can either put 1 penny pieces on or 20 pence pieces on. And then gonna check that they're evenly balanced. Pretty close. That ideally would want just a whisker of a tweak, and that's all set. Then I'm just going to double check my droop, make sure the droop is the right amount for me. Perfect. And then I just make sure of the mesh on my pinion. Want to make sure that when I'm just moving the wheel backwards and forwards, it's got a very, very, very small amount of play. Then I make sure that the pinion gear is tightened up, and I'm pretty comfortable with where the car would be at that point. Then I put my body shell on, put the body clips on, and I think it's really important, obviously again something I've covered in one of my other videos, you're making sure that this body can really sit on the car without any force, it can just drop on. And what I'm not looking to do is clamp the shell down. I want it to sit on the car, and you can see that I've actually got a little bit of a gap in there that the shell is not being pushed down onto the chassis. It's got a little bit of play in there if it does happen to want to lift up. I've got a decent amount of clearance in my wheel arches, both front and rear, so that I can just do this test where just push the rear of the car or the body shell so it doesn't catch on the tyre, so that you've seen it, you go around, you hit, someone touches you up the backside, or you hit a barrier, and then you suddenly have this bit of body shell that tracks in, and then you've got to pull over and let one of the marshals pull it out, which is very annoying. Then I double check the ride height on the front of the body shell. So the gap between the ground and the shell itself, I like to have around 6.5 mil. So yeah, 6.5 mil there. And then down the side, it's a little bit more. I'm up around the 7.5, 8 mil, because obviously you've got the car leaning over. Then I want to make sure that the height of the rear wing is the right height for me. I'll just get my vernier here. There she is. And then just going to measure the height, and with the AMR I'm running between 83 and 85 on the wing tip here, so I'm measuring the gap between the top of the wing here and the ground, and this gap in here between 83.5 and 85, and again depending on how high you want to run your rear wing. And that pretty much sets the car up ready to go. You can see that that's going to take you 6 or 7 minutes to do that, just to go around the car and make sure that everything is in place. You might want to do that just before you start drying off of your car, i.e. the bolts and the pinion gear and all that kind of stuff. So what I started off with doing was, first of all, I tightened up the bolts. That was the first thing I did. Two, checked ride height, and droop, front and rear. Tweak, check the front. Once I've checked the tweak on the front, I wanted to make sure that the mesh of spur and pinion is correct. What I might then go on to do is just switch the car on, wiggle the steering, just blip the motor just to make sure that the electrics are all good. Electric check. 6. Then I'll pop on the body shell, measure the front of shell to ground, and that's about 6.5 millimeters. And then rear wing height of shell. So you've got, you've got 7 pre-flight checks, if you like, before you stick the car down on the ground. Before all of this, so this is pre-race put down. Before any of that, over here in this box, I would have reset the pod, reset the front end, checking camber and toe. I would check the shock as well. And then once I've done all of that, I would then just go back and reset the tweak on the rear of the car. Reset the tweak on the rear of the car, and then making sure that I've now got some newly true tyres on. Setting the ride height. So you can see on the left hand side, this is this one here is a race reset, and this is a pre-race put down. So this is a race reset, and the race reset is making sure that everything is in shape for it to then kind of be double checked just before I put it down. I would suggest that this one on the left hand side probably takes you 30 minutes. Can't spell minutes. This one takes about 30 minutes. This takes about 5-7 minutes. So you've got a 40-minute step-by-step process there to reset the car and then pre-check it. On top of that, obviously, you've got additive time, marshal time, and making sure that you're eating and drinking. That would be a really nice way to plan a meeting, not only with your car, a schedule of events, and for me, how you reset your pod, how you reset your front end, checking camber and toe, checking the shock. These are all kind of topics that I've covered on the race series YouTube videos. And I think once you then start to get into this routine of doing that each time, when you put your car down on the track, it will do the same thing, hopefully, that you want it to do. You've got your changes in there as well that you need to think about, of course, if you're going to be adjusting the car for next time, but that that's part of your attack of going faster and assessing the evolution of the track as well. Hopefully that's been of some use. If you like and subscribe. It's lovely to have you along for another one of these sessions, and we'll maybe start doing a few live evening sessions as we move forwards. And I look forward to seeing you all trackside too. Bye for now.